Yes, then I just want to wish everyone a good morning and welcome to this second CABUTE seminar. I thought the agenda now today is that we start with just if there are, since this is also a possibility for us to communicate with the whole team, with candidates, and also the group leaders are present there. So if there are any special concerns or anything that you like to bring up here, we will give some space for that just in the very beginning, and then we start working on the things that we are supposed to work on, namely research design. And I'm glad to say that Associate Professor and Head of Department Chasti Lea, she will be taking care of that and doing a presentation on that. And I have also today asked our PhD candidates to make a... we have to mute Rebecca also. Yes. Yes, I have asked I've asked the PhD candidates also to give a separate presentation. So yes, are there any issues that anyone wants to talk about when we just have this open space? So please come forward with any issues. Okay.
Can I add, Steinar, that
yes.
that we are also interested in just hearing from all of you how you're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, it has. How are you progressing? How are the exams? Are you in the place where you want to be at the moment? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So anyone who want to say anything about anything here? Okay, I actually have a question, and that the question is because we have we got the we have got a spokesperson for the PhDs, but what about the master candidates? Have you come to anything? I see some of you are here. Have you discussed it? Yes, please, Ronald.
Yes, good morning, Professor and the colleagues on the platform. Yeah, we discussed and we selected one person to represent the masters, and that is Ronald Kanono.
Okay, thank you, Ronald. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Okay, but we make a notification of that and make sure that you are linked in the information. But maybe Ronald, do you have anything to say about the situation for the master students now? How are things? You have been through exams, and I think
yeah, Professor, I have something to say. Like we have been so busy in exams, and some of the colleagues finished the exams Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
and we are still pushing on, but it's unfortunate that people didn't get time to go into deep of the text that you sent. Yeah. But at least they tried, and they are still on platform, but probably we are still pushing on to be on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald, and that's also why we have postponed this seminar. We would have liked to take it have the seminar earlier if we could, but we knew that the master's candidates that you were in having exams, so that is why we have postponed it until now. So that's it. Yes, any other people who want to say something about how? Are there any of the PhD candidates who would report anything?
Yes, Esther. Good morning, Professor. Yes,
Good morning.
please. I'm glad that I'm here. And I would also like to report that as PhD scholars, I was nominated as a coordinator for the group to coordinate the administration, the CABUTE office with the students. Then secondly, I would like to request my presentation is prepared on slides. Will it be possible for you, for example, to help me display it so that I present as you help me run it? Because I have issues with my laptop. It doesn't have sound, so I'm using a smartphone.
Okay.
If
Yes.
I shared with you.
If you share it with me, that's fine. We can run it from here. That's okay. That's okay. So
Okay, let me send on your.
please do, Esther. That's nice. That's good.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
okay. Yes, I said that we have this in the agenda, but we will also have we will have Chasti presenting, and then we will have the PhDs, and we will also see if it's possible. It depends on many we are, but if it's possible to do some work where we also go into chat room and are in groups, but that depends on how many we are. I see that there are still some candidates not present in the seminar, so we'll adjust to that. But Chasti, I think I would just ask you to take over here and give your part of the presentation. Is that okay with you, Chasti?
That's okay. That's okay. I'll just add to what we have just been talking about, or Steiner and a couple of you, that I think we may do this as a regular thing, opening with an open discussion, checking on how things are. And it's not about looking for trouble and problems in any way. It's just that some of us, especially the Bergen people, we're so far away, so it's hard for us to really get the fingertip feeling of how you're doing, if you're happy in your work, what has happened over the last month, that sort of thing. So it's good for us if you share it with us, and also I guess for the group as a whole. So it's fine for now, but this is, I think, something we will try out in these seminars. We'll just see how it all develops. But for now, we are going to talk about research design, and where is it? I'm trying to share the screen with you, but where is it? Just try and open it. That was not the thing. Do you see the headline CABUTE candidate seminar now, people? Yes. Yes. And then the other. So, yeah. Yeah, this is our topic for today, research design, and we thought this was an appropriate topic because you've been busy with your exams and stuff, so we guess that you're still not being able to dig really deep into your actual projects. And we want to be ahead of that with this presentation. It's based on very much so on the chapter you've got and the book we've chosen for the more theoretical framing and the teaching about that. the book by Hatch called Doing Qualitative Research in Educational Settings. But still we'll do it our own way, and I hope, really hope, that you ask any questions that you may have while I'm presenting. Just feel free to interrupt and ask questions, because that's, since we are all on our laptops, that's the only way we can have this as a dialogue and something that that's not just one way. And Steiner will help me to see if anyone asks questions. Also, just raise your hand. So when starting a research project, actually there are two questions that come up pretty early in the process, and the number one is what do I want to research, of course, the topic, and then number two pretty much will be, how am I going to go about it? That is, what design do I want to use for my project? And then, of course, to be able to answer that, you need to know what the options actually are, and to be able to choose and a design for your own work, and why that is a good one, and preferably the best one for that specific project. So that's a thing you need to do now if you haven't done it already. And then to know to be able to choose, you need to know what a research design is, and to put it in few words, these few keywords here are what makes a research design in sum. You need to know, what do I want to achieve with my project? Is it to dig out new knowledge, or is it to collect knowledge that's already there, but give an overview and a presentation and a maybe interpretation of what is already known? Is it to set up a model for something that could be of help in, for example, an educational practice? If you think of medicine, that's very much what they do. They for example, try to find a new medicine for a certain condition. It's practical, practically helpful. That's the aim of many of those projects. So we need to know, are we doing that, or are we just trying to find out how things are and establish a knowledge base for example, politicians? If they are well informed, then they can make good decisions. That could be one way of thinking, and that is one way of thinking in many research projects. For example, research informed by the social sciences, or inspired educational research inspired by the social sciences, tend to think that way. And then what is the pair of glasses I use when I look at my data that I have collected along the way? Is it it's very metaphorically, if you wear sunglasses, things look a bit different if you wear reading glasses. And that's the metaphoric way to say that the perspective you take will influence what you see. Or to use another metaphor, the back of the house looks different from the front of the house often, but it's still the same house, and both are true. Both are true images of that house. So theory matters a lot also, and of course it has to be in line with your aim. The same goes, coming back to all of this, the same goes for methodology, because certain perspectives favor certain methodologies, whereas others are not favored by that same perspective. So you have to choose things that or bits in the jigsaw that fit together simply. And then the methodology is the theory in a way about a methodical framework and tools. So the methods, of course, have to be in line with methodology. How do I do it? What do I do? Do I interview, or what do I do? It's common when talking about research design, it's common to divide between qualitative and quantitative research, and then we have the mixture, or often referred to as mixed methods. But that's not the only way of thinking about it. That's one convention. You could look at other categories instead, like empirical versus theoretical studies, or a combination of those. You can talk about observation studies versus participation, or a mixture. You have a participating observation as well. You can when we are, especially when we're talking about qualitative studies, which we are today, because that's what you're all doing, we can study documents, but we can also study people and practices, what is here and now and alive in a way different from documents. There are normative studies and there are descriptive studies. That's what I refer to as knowledge based or more action oriented. And there could be other. I don't know if you have any suggestions to that now, but this is a way of showing at least that there is a wide range of designs and ways of mixing these boxes as well. And it's not possible to do it all, and it is necessary to make a choice. So that's maybe the main message here at this slide. You need to choose, and you need to know why you make the choice you do. In qualitative studies, as in other, of course, or also quantitative studies, if we go for that divide, it's important that the design support your work, that it's helpful, and that it gives it direction. It does inevitably, but at the same time, and that's a sort of a dilemma, you can't line out every detail at the outset, because if it's too rigorous, it may limit your work also more than you want. Well, as it says on the slide, when doing research with people, as one in some way or other typically does if one is doing qualitative research, it is necessary to allow for that. It must be a bit loose, so you have to allow for the unexpected. There's a misspelling there, sorry for that. As it says to the right, the gold may be found exactly there in the unexpected. When something happens, then you should not have a design that is so rigorous that it doesn't, that you have to close the door and say, well, this is not part of my plan, I'm not going there, maybe then you miss important stuff, and you don't want that, of course. So going a bit, taking a step closer to the actual project, question number 1 will be, what, and is always, what are you going to investigate? The answer to this question should be as clear as possible before you choose the design. You don't choose the design first. So it should be as clear as possible before you choose the design for your research project, because different kinds of questions and topics call for different designs. And here are just some examples. Let me just read them. Why do teachers quit? For example, teachers in Uganda quit and look for other jobs. What is the best way of teaching young children to read, and why? What are the main differences between urban and rural schools in northern Uganda? How can the number of pupils who finish secondary school be increased? What should the main aims of basic education be? How should they be achieved, and why? Do you see that these are qualitatively quite different questions, even if they're all about education? Is there is there any of these questions that you would say is about building a knowledge base, like I talked about, and mainly that, without taking particular action, just, you know, finding out what things look like, looking for explanations, looking for understanding, maybe? Well, I'd say the first is about that, and that may, even if you want teachers to stay put in their schools, that's not what question number 1 is about. First, you need to find out why, and then you can suggest what to do about it if you want them to rather stay in schools rather than becoming taxi drivers or whatever they become. And maybe that's for other people to find out how that could be changed, whether it be, you know, salary or work hours or whatever it takes. Maybe that's not for the researcher. Maybe that's for the politicians. I don't know. They could be both. But this question, at least, is about finding out. It's the why. So it's not, it's a knowledge base question, you could say, whereas the second last, how can the number of pupils who finish second school be increased? That's more about how can we do it? How can we change things? So that's more a normative research question than number 1, who is more descriptive. And then at the bottom, what should the main aims of basic education be? How should they be achieved, and why? Well, that's a question you can improve in different ways. You could, of course, go out, do some field work, and see what seems to work and what seems to work not so well, and you could base your study on that, recommendations based on that. But this could also be a purely theoretical question, a philosophical question. So you could base your answer to the question on a philosophical theorizing about what's good for children, what's good for the country, or whatever angle you choose to take on that. So, of course, I will share the slides with you later. So yeah. We have not commented on questions number 2 and 3. And would anyone like to have a go to what are they about? What sort of questions are they? Anyone? If not, I'll have to ask Sigrid instead for the students.
Yeah, about 2 and 3, questions 2 and 3.
Or yeah, but pick one, Sigrid, first, and we'll see if anyone else can get the chance for the last one.
Yes. What is the best way of teaching young children to read?
Yes.
And why? Yeah. So I am a sort of subject specific didactics person. So I am always concerned about theories that also pertain to the subjects and to reading as a basic skill.
Yeah.
And of course, I would look for previous research on reading and what promotes reading skills, especially when it comes to language learning, second language learning, and so on. So yeah, of course that would have to be part of it, and there are quantitative studies on reading skills. There are qualitative studies on how teachers implement the teaching of reading strategies, and of course, yeah, these concepts need to be included or not included according to the research design, the research question. Was that what you were thinking of?
Yeah.
There are so many aspects here, of course.
There wasn't a fixed answer, Sigrid, and I love what you bring in here because it's very important that in addition to what I've been talking about so far, there is the question of background, what you already know, what your education is, where you work, and that, of course, is decisive for your perspective and your interests as well.
Absolutely, yeah, the context.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's certain questions you can ask exactly because of what kind of background you have, and educational and otherwise experience, of course, as well, work experience and also life experience, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, yes. Work experience, life experience. So we need both the experience-based knowledge that we may glean from the context in which we conduct the research, and also the research-based knowledge. And there might be research-based knowledge from your exact context that is available, and then, of course, from other contexts, and then you would have to determine is research from this and that context relevant to my research, or isn't it? And you could even have a theoretical discussion there, why it is relevant or why not, why it isn't. So that would also lift, I think, the quality. Yeah,
absolutely. And also that brings us to something that I will get back to, but I think that's quite all right, because we need to say these things more than once, I think. And that's the question of limiting your project, isn't it? It's just, it's relevance on one hand and it's limitation on the other, because you can't do it all at once.
No, and that's very important, yes, because I know that when I did my PhD study, I tried to do too much at once and had to work quite a bit to limit it.
I suspect we have all been there somehow. And I'm saying it's a very, very common challenge, and that's why I am stressing it now, because to ask the good and specific questions and limit your project is so important, even if it's not part of this slide, since this is where we ended this little conversation. I feel it's it's all right to mention that for the first time. Well, let's go to Leah for question number 3, because that's it's actually while number 2 relates to English education very well, maybe number 3 relates to general education. I don't know. What's your comment, Leah, please, on question number 3?
Hello, sorry.
A bit unexpected. I'm sorry for that.
No, it's okay. Thank you very much, and good morning to you all, colleagues and students.
Good morning to you.
Yeah. So I'm looking at question 3 that is asking what the main differences between urban and rural schools in northern Uganda is. Looking at this kind of question, this one, it is a very context-specific question about Uganda, northern Uganda. And so it means that someone, to be able to engage with this question, would need to have been familiar with what's happening in the urban and in northern Uganda. That is one of it. Probably someone like Leah here speaking,
yeah,
she knows a little bit generally, but she would not be able to answer this question unless I went and spent time in northern Uganda and maybe selected schools in the urban and rural locations and compared them.
Yes.
So that is one. And then also when I look at this, like it is also probably an example of a very broad question, because I would ask differences in what aspect. Could it be the population? Is it the economic? Is it like it is? I see it as also something very broad. So if you were to take on this question, you would need to limit it. Differences in relation to what? Yeah. So this again speaks about the scope. And so to be able to limit this question, then maybe you would need a theoretical lens, as we have had before, so that you can delimit, because then to provide you a scope. What to look for even as you go to the differences. If you are looking at it in terms of the social demographics, then you would look at a theory that allows you to see that. Or if you want to look at the performance, the learning outcomes, then you also would have to delimit by identifying a theory that allows you to do that. So this could be a question that you begin with, but then you would have to limit it, because as it stands now, to me, it is kind of very broad, like we would not know where exactly, what kinds of differences that we are looking at. And also it is very quite specific in terms of the context. Yeah. And so probably in terms of a broad research question for your project, it wouldn't work effectively in the state in which it is. But it could be the beginning of your thinking. Yeah. And as you read more, you would then begin to limit the scope and look at what specific aspects you would need to look at, even as you look at this, the differences between the urban and rural schools in northern Uganda. I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful. Thank you, Leah. Thank you so much, because it shows whereas it was quite the number 2 is broad as well. Of course it is. So it's more of a research question for a whole group than for one person, maybe both of those. But still, it's they can serve as help for our discussion about these matters. And number 3, as you say, at one hand, it's rooted in a social and geographical reality. So maybe that's an indicator for what kind of theory you're looking for. At the other and then at the same time, you need to be more specific, as you say, or otherwise it will not be possible to perform the research for you. You don't. It's not clear from the question, is it? What exactly you're looking for? Is it in performance? Is it in others? So is it in background and are you looking for a possible relation between your resources, for example, economical, your family's resources and your performance, or whether you drop out of school? That's what are you looking for? And then there's one specification, and that's urban and rural. And do we see a pattern there? So yes, it's a question that needs to be more limited than it, and specific than it is. Where with regard to descriptive and normative, number 3 will be a typically descriptive question, maybe inspired by the social sciences, probably, and that sort of theory, but it doesn't say what anything. You're not aiming at finding out what you need to do about these differences, if that's an idea that you have, because you need to find more out about them first, and then you, so to speak, pass the knowledge on. Okay, it doesn't want it there. What Hatch writes about research design, well, that's more than one thing, but he, at page 41, he writes, when there is a bad fit between methodological and substantive theory, between substantive theory and methods, or between methodological theory and methods, the logic of the design falls apart. And by that he means it's not easy to perform the study either in a good way. That is why I encourage new researchers to spend time clarifying their methodological and substantive theoretical basis as a first step in research design, and which is why we are talking about this today. The glasses I was talking about before, well, that's the thing that's commonly referred to as the study's theoretical perspective, or as Hatch also does, a paradigm, a research or a theoretical paradigm. Just to mention a few perspectives that you can choose among in qualitative research, and I hope you know some of the terms before. Social constructivism is one, very, very popular in educational research. Phenomenology, I always have difficulties saying this word. Yes, yes, I know. Phenomenology. You have narrative theory, you have discourse analysis, hermeneutics, critical theory, feminist theory, etc., which is closely related to critical theory, and several others. And there are similarities between them. It's a continuum more than very separate boxes. Still, you need to know a little bit about the differences to be able to choose. And this is too big a topic for our little lecture today. So this is a thing you need to discuss with your supervisor, really. And also probably, if possible, take a course on your paradigm or perspective of choice. Each of these perspectives comes with certain methodological options. and they form a whole in a way. But that can also be a wide range in some of them. So you have to make further choices when you have chosen a perspective that makes sense to your project. This all may sound a bit scaring somehow, but as it says on the bottom point here, theory is supposed to help researchers clarify what they're up to and help them to explain to others what they are up to. So it's like a map in a way. That's one way of seeing it. And this is here I will ask Steiner for help for it. This is the first point where I would like you to go in groups, breakout rooms, and have a little discussion about what paradigm and design have you chosen for your project and why, to talk to each other about that. If possible, I think it's a good idea that the groups are the subject groups. Is that possible, Steiner?
Yes, I'm gonna have a new way of doing this. I see it's possible for the participants to choose rooms. So
Okay.
what I'm doing is I'm naming the rooms after the subjects. So you go into your subject room. So room number 1 will be English. Room number 2 will be general education. I'm writing this as I'm multitasking here. And room number 3, it's going to be mathematics. But it says so. And room number 4 will then be for music education. So I'm opening the rooms now, and please go ahead and select your room. And shouldn't we ask also the group leaders or co-group leaders also to join?
That's a good idea. Yeah. Absolutely.
So like Johan, you go into mathematics, and yeah.
And I think I was thinking that 10 minutes might be enough, but let's just keep the rooms open until 9 o'clock, because then you can also stretch your legs or something if you finish before that. But if it's a good discussion, maybe it's good to have enough time as well.
Yeah.
So until 9 o'clock.
Okay, then please, everyone, just find your breakout room. You find that I think you need to just click on breakout room, and you choose the room that you want to go into and find your way out in the room. Du er der fortsatt, Kjersti? Ja, det ser ut sånn at du finner veien ut her. Jeg kan ta og sende de ut, faktisk. Hvis det er noen... Akkurat denne måten å gjøre på, har jeg ikke gjort før.
Men det var jo lurt. Det er vel rett og slett... Jeg tipper det er teknologien som stadig blir litt bedre. Jeg tror ikke det der har vært mulig fra starten av.
Nei, da var det liksom enten så hadde du lagt gruppen, eller så måtte du... Ja, men her ser man at engelsk har i hvert fall etablert seg. General Education, der sitter de to, men Skal vi se, Johan sitter alene I mathematics. Nicholas har funnet sin vei inn på music.
Ja, fordi at det jo
ja.
Det var jo mer, hun der Esther jo for eksempel I matte.
Ja, men hun har funnet
Men de ikke så vant til det som våre folk, sant?
Neida, men da skal vi se. Jeg ser det noen som, det kan være noen som ikke her nå. We have some people in here that Leonida should be in general education. So I'm assigning Leonida to general education. Yeah. I'm looking at my list here.
Bare med en sånn liten laptop-skjerm, vet du. Så
ja. Sherry should be in English. David should be assigned to music. And Ronald should be assigned to mathematics. Yes. Da det faktisk bare du og meg som ikke Roger, Mposa, are you there? Mposa, can you hear me? I'm trying to...
Ja, Ganim.
Ja, jeg prøver det. Daniel skal være på general education. Ja. Gidder du så bare stikke innom, skal vi bare stikke innom de der spretter ut igjen, like fort så de kommer det, men skal vi bare stikke innom, hvis du begynner med engelsk og education?
Ja, jeg må skal se, det escape for å få ikke ned fra full skjerm?
Vet du hva, nå skal jeg I hvert fall ta så gjør deg til co-host, så du har litt utvidet rettigheter her.
Ja.
Skal jeg si det?
Jo, jeg skal ikke misbruke det.
Nei, det var ikke det jeg tenkte, men skal vi se.
Jeg tror det.
Nei, men make co-host, sånt, så har jeg make co-host, har jeg lagt det til co-host her. Ja.
Du ser at disse minuttene går jo ganske fort, faktisk.
Minuttene går kjempefort, det. Men vi kan jo kanskje bare gå innom oss, så skal vi gå innom det I rommene, så bare høre om det behov for noen flere minutter.
Ja, og så skal vi se, hvor vi kommet? Vi kommet til side, til 19, cirka halvveis I gjennomgangen, og jeg har tenkt å ha et gruppe utpå til, så jeg tenker at til 9 bør det bare være helt ok, tror jeg.
Det høres fint ut, Men skal vi gå inn? Har du lyst til å gå innom gruppene?
Ja, jeg kan jo
eller vil du bare la de være?
Jeg tenkte kanskje at min stemme liksom den dominante akkurat nå, så jeg tenkte kanskje å la de få litt, og Lea var jo 100% på, så tviler jeg ikke på at hun tar den gruppen sin.
Nei. Og det Johan inne på, så vi har jo gruppeledere på alle grupper nå.
Ja, så det er flott. Der kan de bruke det til et sånn det noe med de der kontaktgreiene, sant, som jeg tror ikke at jeg skal gjennomgå det en gang. Det viktigste her diskusjon, ikke hva de får ut av det. Men du som sitter med 2 skjermer og sånt, ser det ut som det funker, ting?
Ja, det ser veldig fint ut dette.
Ja, det bra.
Så, ja, nei, jeg tenker på at akkurat på selve presentasjonen, og hvis du ikke har noe imot det, så tror jeg at vi kan ta oss og legge den, så kan vi ta oss og redigere presentasjonen som en egen video. Altså, vi trenger ikke ta alt prat rundt og sånt.
Ja, du tenker så, ja, det hadde...
Det har jeg ikke tenkt på det.
Jeg hadde ikke tenkt, jeg hadde tenkt på PowerPointene her. Men det faktisk klart å glemme at... Jeg så jo at du tok opp.
Ja, men
kanskje jeg bare ta en manus neste gang, sånn at det blir proffere.
Ja, nei, men det virker proff dette, Kjersti. Det flott dette, så... Så det det. Ja da. Nei, men det greit. Da har vi noen med. Men da kan jo du ta deg et par minutter, Ola, Kjersti. Hvis
Ja,
du
ja, ja,
får
det
strekke litt
går
grann,
an.
sant?
Så ser du har sendt neste runde av rapporten.
Ja, men vi snakker ikke om det, for det går
Neida,
på opptak
nei, det
folk
har du
sikkert.
veldig rett i. Veldig rett i. Ja, så det kom en e-post, det kan vi bare si.
Ja.
Ja.
Ok, men nå deler du e-posten din nå her,
Å,
forresten.
ja, det er ok,
Så det må
det er helt unødvendig. Helt unødvendig. Sånn.
Ja da.
Ja, det er det jeg mener med å gå ut og inn og sånne ting når jeg
Ja,
har den
nei,
lille skjermen. Det blir så klønete ofte.
Ja. Nei, men har ikke du muligheten for å jobbe på flere skjermer?
Nei.
Vet du hva, det er en kjempegod investering. Det er en av de beste investeringene du gjør. Det er å ha, kjøp deg en god, stor ekstra skjerm som du har altså.
Det gjør du det, ja.
Ja. Altså, du kan jo bare tenke deg med det arbeidet jeg har satt med noe i det siste, liksom, altså, det er liksom, og så skal du ha noe som ligger på en Excel-fil, og så er det noe som du har på nett, og så har du selve dokumentet, og det å liksom kunne sitte og ha alt oppe rundt seg, og liksom, ja, der var den, og der var den. Det er helt nødvendig, altså, for det blir helt tullet hvis du skal drive så hoppe fra dokument, eller fra fil til fil, så blir du helt tullete.
Ja, altså jeg ser det jo når jeg sitter på kontoret, der har jeg også bare en skjerm, og en helt gammel og slitt en og alt dette. Men jeg ser jo, da synes jeg jo at å bruke laptop-skjermen er veldig klønete i forhold, sant? Så det er jo egentlig det du sier, men så hjemme der er det jeg har, så der synes jeg jo at det går helt fint.
Ja, nei, altså det er klart at
forventning for sånn som du
nei, vi som jobber med musikk, vet du, og sitter med noter og slags sånn, så jeg er jo avhengig av gode skjermer og sånt, så.
Ja, klart.
Så, nei, men det er veldig det, og for hva er det jeg betaler, jeg tror ikke jeg betaler, i hvert fall for en 2000 kroner, så får du en kjempeskjerm, store, veldig god skjerm, så du kan få for 2000 kroner.
Det blir så billig, ja.
Ja, det er ikke noe problem. Det er det ikke. Nei, så jeg
men bruker du iPads til noe i stedet for notehefter nå, eller? Sånn
iPad?
Ja, eller nettbrett.
Jo da, nei, jeg har brukt det litt, men egentlig så burde du ha den der store da, den koster ganske mye penger. Men jeg ser det etter en del, så.
Ja, på dirigenter det er ikke så uvanlig at de ser at de bruker disse brettene.
Skal vi se, da er klokken kan jeg sende en melding, 2 minutes left, kan jeg skrive? Ja, jeg kan heldigvis mute selv her. Ja, men det er veldig kjekt egentlig dette her med at de kan, altså at når vi jobber sånn som dette her, det ligner veldig mye på sånn som vi jobber i den nasjonale forskerskolen egentlig, sånt, og det er så både i forhold til måten kan vi jobbe med i presentasjoner, og det at du får lagt sånne nettverksgrupper som de på en måte har, og som de er tett på, sant? Så,
det er jo det vi håper, at de blir litt tette, de gruppene etter hvert.
Ja, og i utgangspunktet så er ikke prosjektet større enn at egentlig så bør de kunne, altså at alle kjenner alle, sant?
Ja. Samtidig så sitter de litt på forskjellige steder rundt omkring og jobber, og selv om de fleste er på samme universitet, så er de jo allikevel spredt på campus, og kanskje mer enn det også, for noen bor vel egentlig andre steder, men har formelt opptak der. Så det må noe arbeid til for å få dette til å
Det må det.
henger sammen, tror jeg.
Det må det.
Nå er den ett på hos meg.
Ja, er han ett på?
Ja.
Ja, jeg tror jeg close all rooms. Jeg får at det går et minutt bare på å gi den det at de går ut, sånn at de blir ikke kastet ut med en gang.
Ja, nå er det folk greit i alle gruppene som er her.
Ja, det er det. Nei, så det fungerer det. Da, forhåpentligvis så ligger det, hvis du vil, så kan vi ha de gruppene videre, at de gruppene ligger der videre.
Ja, vi skal en gang til. Ja da, det er bra. Det er veldig bra.
Og uansett så kan jeg lage det til sånn at de ligger klare, hvis ikke de blir liggende igjen.
Hvis du pusler på med det i bakgrunnen, så er det kjempefint.
Ja da, nei, jeg sitter med det.
Det er jo sånn med dette her at hvis man skal utnytte mulighetene, så trenger man egentlig en assistent.
Ofte, så ja da, det var jo det som var problemet under covid, at vi ofte satt og gjorde alt dette her alene.
Ja.
Det ser ikke ut som noen går ut frivillig, så blir alle kastet inn ut i løpet av 14 sekunder.
Men det er et godt tegn da.
Ja, absolutt. Jo da, nei, det er et godt tegn. 3, 2, 1.
Bang.
Da er alle tilbake oss. Ramler de inn.
Musikk, de er fulltallige, sier jeg.
Oh, we were cut off mid-sentence, but here we are.
Yes. I take it as a good sign that none of you actually signed out of the rooms voluntary. You were all thrown out of the rooms, so I take that as a good sign.
Okay. Yeah, like Steiner, I hope you had a good conversation, and here the discussion in the groups was the important thing, it's not important to me what you told each other, so we're not going through that now, we're just proceeding, and there will be a second round of group discussion in a little while. Okay, why doesn't there? After having chosen a theoretical perspective, there are more things to do. Then it's important that you really get to know the theoretical perspective or framework that you've chosen. So what you do, you familiarize yourself with theoretical writings within that particular perspective. In other words, you read about theory, maybe the founders, maybe original text in that sense, but it's likely that there will be introduction books or articles, whatever, which could be a very good place to start. And you also read research performed within the perspective. How have they actually done it? How have other researchers worked when working with that paradigm or theoretical perspective? And it's best if it's also a research that is thematically related to your own project in some way or other, because not because other research isn't as good, but just simply because that will probably be the most profitable for you, because then you get it's more concrete. It's easier for you to see how you can best go about it yourself. So why? Well, that's because you can thereby learn something about what is already known with regard to your own topic, what needs further exploration, where do I dig in, and what are the possibilities within the chosen framework. How is it possible to do research when I have chosen this particular perspective on things? And once you've done that, or parallel to it, very often you do more things. You go back and forth, and you do more than one thing. You focus on your own project and your own interests, and you build a sort of framework around it that is theoretical, methodological, etc., etc. So you go back and forth normally. And you have to formulate some questions to your topic. Research questions should be open-ended in qualitative studies, which means that you don't ask questions of the kind where the answer is yes or no, for example. How, why, that sort of questions that are open to whatever you detect or find out there. And the question is actually what you have in your pocket, in your hand all the time, no matter what you're doing. So the research questions could be said to be the pivot of the study in all its aspects. It's decisive of your choice of the theory, how you analyze your data, how you collect your data, etc. And also, as we were discussing before the group work, there must be some boundaries. Otherwise, it's not possible to do it. If it's floating, if it's covering everything, well, then it's impossible to perform the study and find any answers at all, really. And the questions, like Leah was talking about, will help you limit your project and help you focus. So good research questions are really, really valuable for your work, and also for the results, for how you can communicate, how you can tell the world that you're, of course, your assessment committee, but if you are explaining to others what you're doing, if you're publishing articles about it, for example, research articles, if you can be specific in how you communicate about it, it's much easier for other people to understand what you're talking about as well. And then the results you've generated can, so to speak, work in the world to the questions must be compatible to the chosen paradigm, which I'm saying over and over today, but that's because that's sort of the headline of today's lecture. Whether we're talking about theory or methods, they to give rather clear answers. They must be clear. Also, the questions should be as clear as possible, but then it must not be too general. And that also, again, we can think of question number 3 that we discussed before, when we just say what are the differences. That's a too general formulation. You must be more specific. You must go down, take it down to earth, so to speak. And there should absolutely not be too many. You may need more than one, but as it says at the bottom here, usually one chooses one main question, one overarching question with several sub-questions that support or specify the main question. Otherwise, again, it becomes too general, too floating, too unspecific, and it's hard to do the work. We also talked a little bit about context before. Context matters. Do you, anyone of you, do you recognize the building? It's from Uganda. And it's from from education somehow. No, I'll tell you in a couple of seconds. Context is about the where and the when of your study. Even with the same research questions, how can you best teach young children to read, for example, as we had before, the findings may differ if you change the where and the when of the study. For example, this picture is of a building at, I think it's called Kampala International School. And if you are trying to find out how, for example, teaching or history or whatever is taught, it's very likely that your answer will be different if you go to this school from what you find if you go to a village school, little village school, 100 miles from Kampala. It's just, we can all imagine that that would be not quite the same. So when you have a question, when you have something you want to find out about, you need to ask yourself, where and when will I best be able to find answers to my questions? If you're talking about prep or investigating preparation for exams, maybe it's better to go into the school or the schools not too long before the exams rather than in the beginning of the academic year, for example. Could be one simple example. Then you have to ask yourself, will I at all have access to my preferred context, my field, where I want to do my field work? Or will that be difficult for some reason? What are the reasons? Is there anything I can do about it? Can I talk to people beforehand to open the gate, so to speak, to the field? Or must I just simply alter my question and find other ways to do my research? Maybe it's really hard to get access to the social field where you want to be. So maybe you have to turn to documents or to books, historical documents or political documents instead. That could be one solution. And generally, you have to ask yourself, is my plan feasible? Is it possible to do what I plan or want to do within the context I have chosen? Am I familiar enough with the context? As in the example with northern Uganda before, do I have to go there? Do I have to talk to people there? Do I have to stay there for a while and learn more about it in order to be fair to the people I talk to there in my actual research project? It could also be with not a geographical region, but maybe a certain group. Maybe you want to talk to headmasters, for example. Do I know enough beforehand about headmasters' work, what they are actually doing, how they're doing it, what it takes to become a headmaster? Do I know enough about that, or do I need to find out more about it before I go and talk to them, in order to talk to them on equal terms? I need to know something about them, and also in order to get to my research questions when talking about them. But there is also the other possibility that I am too familiar with the context. Maybe there will be because of that, conflicts of roles. If I'm, for example, doing field work in a school where I also am teaching, will the people say, my colleagues, will they see me as their colleague or a researcher? And how can that be a challenge, if at all? What are the possible difficulties with the inside-outside perspective? And also a particular challenge could be related to the taken for grantedness. If you are very much an insider within the field where you are doing your work, your research, then both people you talk to who know you as an insider and yourself will take so much for granted that your transcripts, your interviews, the data you generate will not be specific enough, because you talk in their codes of the field, and instead of, if you're a little bit more now of an outsider, you need to ask more questions and things become more explicit. If it's too implicit, you can also not draw conclusions. If it's not been said, if it's not been done, if it's not been indicated, because you're so much an insider. So that's also a thing to take into consideration. And then in qualitative research, you need some information about how people think, how things are done, or whatever. You will normally, you need some participants. Yeah, and question number one is then, why do I talk about a participant instead of an informant? Anyone? David, please. Are you still there, David?
Yeah, yes,
At all?
sorry.
Yes, yeah, you are. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. Could you please explain that to us? Why qualitative research prefers the term participant to informant?
Well, yes, informant was used in ethnography, which developed in the field of anthropology. And at the time, it had connotations that were fairly innocent, just somebody who's providing information, an informant. But across time, informants started to develop other kinds of connotations in other spheres of activity. For instance, police informant, somebody who's sort of, the slang term is snitching on somebody who's providing maybe information that others don't want them to provide. And so as this term informant started to have these other connotations, then there's been a tendency to use participant, but it also has to do with the idea that an informant, it sounds like they're only providing information rather than actually taking an active part in shaping the study. Exactly. Whereas if you're a participant, ideally, you are actually a kind of a collaborator, somebody who's cooperating to help develop this new knowledge. So it has more of an active connotation, and it has less of a possible negative connotation. There still are some anthropologists, especially kind of older anthropologists, who want to keep using the term informant, but participant is much more common now.
Yes, I think. Yes, I agree. It's not that informant is wrong, but participant have those advantages that you have just mentioned. So it increasingly people doing qualitative research prefer participant. So that's a very good answer to question number 1 here. Why the term participant? This is the reason why we prefer that, and also, well, informant is still in use, but not so much in the kind of research we as a group are doing in CABUTE. Participation is different, of course, in different perspectives, paradigms, in line with the differences in assumptions and aims. If you want to understand practices and understandings, that is how people understand their everyday life, their learning, their job, whatever. If you are understanding patterns, if you are more taking the micro, the structural perspective, or try to understand that, or if you are trying to raise your readers, your audience's consciousness, maybe also that of your participants, as also is legitimate within some paradigms. Maybe you want very much to enhance what David was talking about, the co-production of knowledge, making people, your participants, more active in shaping their surroundings, their learning environment, whatever it is. So that's that, and you have to make some choices about how many participants. And that again, if you're doing a really, really in-depth exploration of people's understanding, life stories maybe, trajectories, or whatever, then you can't have more than a very few participants. But in other designs, they can be several, and you can also add, if you see that, well, it's the data is not rich enough yet, I need to take a go for another round. And you can do that if you're doing, for example, focus group interviews. You can add a group or 2 or 3 until you feel that your data is rich enough. And what kind of what do I want my selected group of participants to look like? Should they be as homogeneous as possible, or do I want a varied sample? Should they be as different as possible? That depends also on your aim. For example, if you were studying reading and teaching of reading, to stick to that example, in a class, and you were focusing, you some of the research was maybe in the whole class, but you also wanted to study individuals, and then that could go both ways. It could, but probably you wanted that varied group in your little selection then, to see different boys and girls and other sorts of variations as well. A good relationship is vital. That is a good relationship to your participants. But what that entails, that also depends on your design, because if you're doing one interview and then leaving the site, it doesn't take quite as much preparation as if you're going into people's life stories, because then you really need a high level of trust and closeness to your sorry, that's my phone troubling me. So, and to gain that trust, it's important that that you are provide information about your project and what you're going to do and what you expect from your participants, what their role will be. You need to be open, you need to be predictable, you need to have an open dialogue to talk to people and listen to them. Of course, you need to be respectful and care actually for your participants. So it has to feel as much as possible as an equal relationship, even if it's not in truth, because you are the researcher and you are a participant in your own research, of course, in certain ways, but the participants they are not the conductors. They're not. There is a power inequality inherent to the situation that we need to keep in mind. Once you have thought about the participants, you need to, or at the same time, again, parallel, you need to decide how you want to work with your participants, and we will get that back to this, I guess, later in a later seminar. So I'm just superficially mentioning some of the options here. You could do videotapes, you could do interviews, there could be individual interviews, and it could be one where you talk more or less at length with your participant, or you could do a series of interviews, come back and ask follow-up questions, or just continue where you ended the previous session, etc., etc. You can do focus group interviews or other group interviews. You could go out and observe and do field notes as you observe. You could be an active participant in the field yourself, participant observation. You could study artifacts especially if you're taking a historical perspective. That could be very studied things. For example, equipment that has been used in education over the last 50 years, something like that. Or you can study documents of various kinds, textbooks, curricula, newspaper, research articles, fiction, etc. We have music here as well. So with the artifacts, that's obvious to the music people that could also be, for example, musical instruments that are, let's say, what is available in classrooms, how are they being used. Yeah, and you could of course do combinations of several methods, but again, not too many. If it gets too complex, it's hard to do what you have planned to do and want to do. So then it's getting more and more exciting as you go ahead, and it's exciting being in the field, but it's also exciting to see what you found out and to analyze your findings. So when do you start doing that? That could actually be from the outset, or it could be that you set up a plan and you go in and dive into it at set stages, and some wait until they have collected what they want of data and do the analysis when they have collected what they need, what they feel they need. generally speaking, you could say that the more open the project is, the more reasonable it is to do your analysis as you go. How do you do this? Well, again, my answer is not very specific today, unfortunately, because I'm just saying you need to do it in a manner that helps you answer your research question. And then we get back to the paradigm and the perspective again. For every project, a qualitative project, it's true, though, that you need to map your data somehow and to find ways of making sense of them based on the questions you are asking and exploring. Yeah, this list is taken directly from Hatch. Just to be a bit more specific, we take one example, and the example is an interview study. So when you have been out somewhere, talk to people, interview them, you need to, maybe you have that on tape, probably, that's the common thing at any rate. And then you need to make a transcript of your interviews. And then when you have it on paper, then you can start your analysis. And I just read the list. You need to identify topic areas that you want to analyze. Then you carefully read the transcripts and you mark entries related to topics. For example, you can have one color for each topic, or use or develop a different system that makes it possible for you to distinguish between topics. Otherwise, you need to do that whole thing over again, which is, of course, too and unnecessarily time-consuming. That you go by color or by your system, you read the entries by topic, you record main IDs in entries in a summary sheet or some system that you develop, so that you can get an overview of what's going on when they talk about this topic. What's going on? What are the views? What are the experiences? What are the thoughts about it? And you look for patterns, you look for categories, and you also look for relationships within each category. Then you read again. This is, of course, very stereotypical list. It's much more going back and forth than what the list indicates, just to mention that. But again, you read your transcripts or data, you read your code entries according to patterns identified, and it's always important to keep some sort of a log, for a record of what entries go with what elements in your patterns, and you keep that log. I would suggest that you start doing that already, that you do it from the outset of you, because you can go back to see where was I in February? What did I think? What did I plan? Is there anything I have forgotten that was really important at the time? That sort of thing. So do keep a log, research log. You also look for that things that do not fit in to your boxes, your patterns and categories, because there could be interesting things there. What are they not saying? What are they not talking about? That I thought it would be obvious that they would bring up. Why is nothing about that here? But also, this can help you decide if your patterns are supported by the data, or if you need to do a new round of analysis. And you can also look for patterns and relationships among the patterns you have identified. Is there a even bigger pattern on the next level when you compare the patterns to each other? Sum each pattern up in one generalizing sentence. Yeah, can I seem not to come up with a good example at the moment, but yeah. And you select excerpts that illustrate and support your analysis. That is the sentence in the point above. So they say that they think, they do this, and the excerpts are sort of not a proof, but an illustration of what you have found. This is here and here and here, but you can't show it all, so you have to choose some few examples. Okay, we are ready for our next little group work. Discuss possible analysis strategies. How can I go about it for your research with your peers in your subject group? And is the analysis strategy defined by your theoretical framework or paradigm? And is it supported by your paradigm? It's what's the time? It's 36. Is it enough? A quarter. I think we stop. Well, we have. Time is. I'm taking too much time. I see now. 10, and then we come back to the plenary.
Yeah, the rooms are open up for you to go in. Just go into breakout rooms and you'll find the room, the group that you belong to, and just select it and join. So that's it. Ja, nå var det sånn at Johan måtte gå, så han er der ikke, så det betyr at matematikk er uten noen. Men bare et par ting som skulle tatt oss og avklart. Nå ser jeg at tiden går jo, sant?
Jeg ser det.
Mitt forslag... Nei, hør nå. Mitt forslag til organisering er rett og slett at vi tar oss og gjør det sånn at du bare kjører ut dagen sånn som vi gjør det nå, og så lar vi det være, nå ser jeg at det er noen som har lyst til å prate litt ekstra, sånn at da lar vi rommene stå åpne for at når vi er ferdig med offisielt, så kan gruppene få lov til å ha litt tid for seg selv, hvis de vil det, men det er frivillig sak.
Okay.
Og så sier vi at vi hadde jo bedt PhD-kandidater om å lage en presentasjon.
Det var det.
Men vi sier at neste seminar, vi tenker at egentlig den presentasjonen kan bli enda bedre hvis vi utsetter det til neste seminar. At vi gir deg starten på neste seminar, bare for å gi oss en oppdatert. Og jeg kommer til å pushe de litt på at de kan på en måte prøve å sette litt standard innenfor prosjektet, i måten de presenterer det.
Ja.
Sant? Er ikke det greit? For vi hadde jo egentlig, akkurat i forhold til presentasjonen, så hadde vi relativt kort tid, sant?
Jeg hadde det.
Men skal jeg eller du gå inn på den der mathematics? Skal jeg gå inn med de, og være med de?
Ja, jeg tror at du skal få gjøre det, på grunn av at det er så klønet med den lille skjermen.
Ja, men da går jeg inn med mathematics.
Jeg må nesten lukke presentasjonen, det tar tid og sånn og sånn.
Ja, nei, det går fint.
Det er jo ganske kort.
Men hvis du er ute i denne verden her, så kan jo du henvise folk. Jeg ser at David er ikke med nå, men han er ikke på music, men ja. Men jeg går inn på mathematics, jeg.
Gjør det.
Og så skal jeg få oss ut alle sammen hver på.
Ja, jeg kan også gjøre det. Close all rooms, den står på skjermen min nå. Så,
jo, vet du hva, gjør det du. Du tar og close, du stenger rommene når du har behov for det. Flott. No one is sharing video here, I see. Huh? Yeah, I recognize that you are without any group leader or co-group leader. That's why I get into you. So Esther, how is the discussion going?
I was trying to get to my friends, to my colleagues in this group.
Yeah.
And I was telling them that we are discussing how interview study can be analyzed, how we are intending to analyze our interview study.
Okay, okay. Are you all doing interviews in your studies?
Yes, I have mixed methods research.
Okay, yeah.
Design.
Yeah.
I have part of it. I have interviews. I have to interview the math tutors. So I have to talk about how I'm going to analyze that data.
Have you gathered the data already?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay, but that's good actually, because I have myself, I've been in a situation where I actually did interviews in a too early stage. So it's good to be clear what data you want to select, what kind of information you want to get, and to be really clear about that before you perform the interviews. That's what I'm saying. So, but what about Ronald? Ronald, are you going to do interviews as well? Ronald, are you there? You're muted at least. Oh, maybe he's not there. What about Glorious?
I'm also going to do interviews as well to tutors.
Yeah.
Because I'm planning to have a qualitative paradigm that I will use also interviews and focus group discussion.
Okay. Yeah, and Chesty, there was one thing that Chesty mentioned in the beginning today, which is really important, and we saw that when you sent in the application, there was many of you, even among those of you who have been selected for the as candidates. Many of you actually, what we saw was that it was too many methodological approaches in the same project, if you understand what I mean. And of course, you have a mixture. When you do mixed, if you do a mixed method, you will use several. But it needs to be clear that you, as she also pointed out, that you use one specific method for a very, very specific purpose. And if you have like 5 different methods, that might be way too much. Probably it is way too much. If you have 5 different approaches to gather things. So the thing is that you have or methods, I mean. The thing is that's she said to you earlier also that you really need to prioritize. But the interview is a really good method to use. And by the way, yes, when you perform interviews, have you had any training or been given any instructions about how to do interviews?
Personally, not yet.
Okay, maybe that's something we should do then.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe that's an important thing.
Even me, not yet, because we haven't met with the supervisors as well to guide us on what to do. They haven't located us supervisors as well. We are still in the process.
Okay, but all of you have at least, you know that Johan is your co-supervisor, right?
Yes.
Sorry?
You know that Johan, who were in here earlier, he is your co-supervisor from Norway.
Yes.
Yeah,
we know.
Yeah. No, but we have really good expertise on interview here. So that's an interesting thing that we should maybe give have you or give you some, make an interview workshop or something, or maybe some introduction videos on interviews, how to make interviews. And I also would say
Okay.
that it's important to have good equipment, which I'm not sure if you have at this point. But these days, maybe you can, if you have a good cell phone, it can also be used.
All right.
But
if we are using,
yes.
if I'm using my own MiFi from where I stay, am I able to access information from your library, like you had promised?
Esther, well, we should. Let's talk about this, Esther. You and I, we talk about it because we need to find a solution to this really quick. Okay.
Okay.
And maybe what we could do is say, because I've tried to make it with Paul and Nicholas, but on Professor Melinda and Dr. Sampija. But still we have not done it. But since you are also now the one who is the salesperson for a spokesperson for the PhDs, I think it would be good if you and I just try it out, and I give you the rights, and we see if we can make it work.
Okay.
So let's do that. Yes, let's look into that immediately. Okay, we will all be thrown out of the room, but that's, there are some issues here we need to discuss further. Good.
Okay.
Okay, then we're back again. Again, I hope you had a good conversation in the groups. Before we opened the group rooms, I was talking about respect and how to cultivate a good relationship with your participants. This is one of several aspects that has to do not only with a sort of social conflict, so to speak, but also with ethics. And ethics is always an issue in all research, but it's very, very clearly so in qualitative research. So you have to somehow be very, respect comes into it at all stages, and you don't intervene and go into people's lives unless you have to. That's one of the rules, unwritten more or less. But let's just have a look at this little checklist that covers some of the aspects you need to think about with regard to ethics. Doesn't cover everything, but again, that's one of the things that will come up in the conversations you have with your supervisors, and it's important to not forget about it. Is it necessary? Why am I doing this particular study? Is it profitable, and for whom? Why am I doing it at this site? Is this the right place? Is it harmful in any way to anyone? What is my relationship to the participants? Can I make sure that it's as respectful as it should be, that sort of thing? And also about, I'll just go on. What are the participants' role in the design, data collection, analysis, and authorship of this study? Do I recognize them as I should, for example? Who owns the study? Who benefits from the study? How do I benefit? And that's a question with possibly more than one answer, because one of the benefits is that you actually earn a degree, which is very important in your personal life, but does it come at a cost for other people? It shouldn't. How do the participants benefit? Is it, for example, through the new knowledge that is being developed through the study, or in other ways? Or don't they benefit at all? Then that's then that's not perhaps quite good enough. If you benefit and they don't, is that okay? And maybe it is, but you need to think about it. Who benefits the most? Who may be at risk in any way in the contexts I'm studying? Should I intervene on behalf of those at risk? This is just a list and you can go back to it, but let's look at this. And this is the final slide. What do you think are these concepts in relation to qualitative research within the field of education? And then I'm thinking of them under the headline of ethics. And I'll read them to you. Maybe you want to respond somehow. We don't have the time to open the group rooms again, so that will be just together. And also, just to mention that we see that time is almost up, so I think Steiner will ask those who have prepared a little presentation about the project to do so next time. He will get back and he will say something about that at the end. But now the concepts: reciprocity, consent, voluntarity, participation, informant, risk, vulnerability, responsibility, collaboration, benefit, asymmetry, power relations, illegal acts, bad practice, and abuse. For example, to start at the bottom, if you see something in your field work that is clearly illegal, what do you do? What do you do if it can affect your own work in any way? But what you do as a citizen who sees something that's not in line with the law, that sort of thing. Consent, it's according to good practice in an ethical practice in research, every participant should give his or her consent. How do you do that in a way that makes sure that it's true consent, that it's really people do agree and know as participants to take part in your study, and know also and understand what they are agreeing to? How do you make sure that they understand that? For example, or if some of the participants are children. Collaboration, that has among other things to do with ownership of the study. So these are some concepts to reflect on and think about. And if anyone wants to say anything about it already now, the floor is open. Anyone? I think I'll call on Nicholas this time to open the conversation. First thoughts.
Yes, please. Could you come again with the question? I didn't get it.
Yeah. What is your reaction to one or some of these words? Do you find them important? Do you find them worth thinking about and commenting in a qualitative research project? What's your backbone reaction to what's on there, not on the blackboard, but on the screen right now?
Okay, thank you very much, Asti. These are absolutely very, very important concepts to consider for researchers in qualitative research, not only in the field of education, but I would say in most of the humanities and social sciences. Yeah, one of the things that I would I would be extremely happy to comment about would be the place of the informant here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ethically, what are the rights of the informant? And then how are we supposed to use the kind of data or information that he gives us? It's really worth thinking about. And of course, in late research, lately, it's also important to give back to our fields, you know, to the areas we've studied, so that they look at what we're writing or studying about them. So the informant is just a central part of our studies in modern scholarship. In the field of education, I know it's very important to interpret the informant's information rightly. Otherwise, it might cause a lot of challenges. Yeah. Then participation is also related to some extent to the informant. When you talk about participation here, there are two areas. One of them is participation as the scholar is conducting his study. For example, when we talk about participation, we are in a sense referring to all individuals who take part in this particular study. So in participation, apart from the participant observation, that how we treat the participants, and then to what extent they must participate in this study. Will they take it over completely from the researcher, or there are assigned roles for participants in this study? So those are very important.
And also, you see, I have put participation next to informant, and
Exactly.
that goes back to the discussion we had with David before, you know. So,
Absolutely.
what's my view on the people in my project? It's also about that, you know. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yes. Thank you, Nicholas. There is a lot to be said about all these concepts, as you said. So when I'm interrupting you now, I'm sorry for that. It's just because of time. But I hope when you get in the groups, when you get the slides, this is the beginning of an ongoing conversation, a conversation that will be running until end of each of your projects, I think, because you're not done with the ethical reflections. Well, let's do it tomorrow and then we're done with it. That's not how it works, is it? It's something you have to keep in mind all the time, more or less. But as it's 2 minutes to 10, I will give the word to Steiner. Steiner, please.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I think I would like to give you applause just there. And I hope you all support me on this, that this was a really, really nice presentation that you have given us today. I see Sigrid is supporting us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
So yeah, so it was a really good presentation and interesting, and it will give us several things to think about. The thing is now that we need to find out how we progress from here. As Chelsea mentioned, since time has been used, we did not get to have. I invited the PhD candidates to give like a 10 minutes presentation on their research design. We did not get time to do that today. So my idea is that we will start the next seminar with the PhD candidates presenting their research design, and hopefully they will also get some, or you, those of you who are PhD candidates, will get some new ideas on how to implement and how to develop your research design further. So it might even be a better presentation than what you had access to of knowledge to do today. Esther is supporting me on that. Is that correct? So if you follow in this, I guess we will do that next time. We start with having the PhD candidates, but I will also push the PhD candidates with how they approach this, because as PhD candidates, you should also feel a kind of responsibility to set a certain standard for how research design is done within the CABUTE projects. So, so that's one thing. Chast, you raised your hand, did you?
Yes, please. I just to add to that, I agree to all you're saying, but I wanted to add that if we are to let this group, the seminars, grow as a little community, a research community, I think it's also important that we are all prepared to give the PhD candidates some feedback next time, so that you as PhD candidates are prepared for that we will discuss it a little bit and give you ask questions, give you some feedback.
Yeah, and the thing is, let's do that, and then the PhD candidates will have to send out their presentations some days in advance before the next seminar. We have put up a schedule for the seminars that is on the page, on our page, so you'll find it on our CABUTE pages. So that's that thing. I was also thinking that today, if some of the groups were in some good discussions, so we will, after this meeting or seminar is officially closed, we will keep the Zoom open for you to go into the rooms. If the music people do have some more concerns or issues they'd like to discuss, you can go into the music group. The same with mathematics, English, and general education. You go in, if you want to, we will keep those rooms open for you to go in. And maybe it's a good thing that at least that you go into the room and say, or just share a few thoughts about what you have gotten from this seminar today. So that I encourage all of you to do that. And I was in the mathematics group where one thing came up, and that was regarding interviews, and because it seems like all candidates are doing interviews, and I asked in the group if they have been given any training or instruction on how to approach interview as a method, and the answer was no. So that is something I will discuss with the team, how we approach this. It might be a next step that we go more into how we do the different methods, including interview, how we do interviews. So and there is also one thing that we need to address, and that is equipment for interviews, because it's good to have good equipment. So we need to find out how to do that for you. So yeah, several things. But again, I would just like to thank Kjersti. And are there any comments from any of you in the room? I should say one more thing. I have already sent the slides to all of you on email. So if you check your email, you should have received the slides from Kjersti's presentation today on email. So that's fine. But before I encourage all of you to go into the group room and at least say goodbye to your friends on the team. But as I say, we keep it open if there are things you'd like to discuss. But before I do that, I would just ask, like, since we are all here today, if there are any of you who have some comments or things they would like to share, with the whole group, please. Okay, Leah, yes, please, Leah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a quick one for the students of Makerere, that especially the students who are concerned that they have not research methodologies like doing interviews and so on. Just to let you know that for many of maybe you are just beginning, the university always runs some compulsory courses in research, design, and methodology. So there will be opportunity. So you should not be very anxious. We can plan in CABUTE, it's okay, but also to just know that they are always advertising some things like that. And whenever these are advertised, please, you're encouraged to apply, and then you can learn together with your peers. But that should not stop us from doing it in CABUTE. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Leonida, you raised your hand as well.
Professor, mine is a question and comment. First of all, a question to Dr. Leah. Those courses of Makerere, are they compulsory that we must do them? Because first of all, they are very competitive too. Some of us, a person like me, feel that we have done something that we may not need to do that. Is it compulsory for somebody to graduate? Since, for example, I'm doing my degree by research. Then secondary, I would like to appreciate so much our presenter. I don't think there is anything she left out in qualitative research, the design, the methodology, everything. Personally, I've learned a lot, but also when you hear from a professional, a senior, what you are doubting or you are not sure is clarified. It is tested and it helps us a lot. I really thank you so much. And I would like to hear from you about that question, Makerere, those courses. There are many issues. And some of us, of course, they involve everything, qualitative, quantitative, whatever, too general, too competitive. Even it's hard to enroll for them. And if I feel I've learned, I've read, I can learn from this, and I go on and do my research. Why, and I finish. Do you hold it against me for not doing those courses? Do you stop me from graduating? What exactly is it?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I see that Ronald has raised his hand.
Okay, thank you, Professor, and the members on board. So I have some concerns to make. One of them is a question to you. All along, since we started the seminars, we've been talking about the qualitative research. Is the possibility that we shall also hold some seminars in quantitative? That is one. Then secondly, it is also a part of the vote of thanks to you and the team of CABUTE and the team of Makerere for the great work that you've done to us. I think this part of the seminar has done great to most of us who are still lagging behind in research design, but at least today, we've picked much out of this. And thank you, Professor. We also, on behalf of the master's students, I also take the chance, thank you for the contracts we received the other day. We are so much appreciative, and we really promise that we shall do our best to graduate in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ronald. And Nancy, I see that you have also raised your hand.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our presenter. I just wanted to answer the questions of Leonida. Yes, the general trainings for research are compulsory for all PhD students. They're organized by Makerere University. Personally, I attended 3 of them when I was doing my PhD. And yes, there is more to it. Yes, here you'll learn a lot from these trainings, but there you get to also interact with PhD students doing various courses in Makerere. You get to make the connections. You get to realize that maybe your challenges are not unique to you. And at the end of the day, you gain more the more you hear different speakers telling you more about qualitative research, how they did their interviews and the like. So whenever you can, please try to attend them. Though just know that as a PhD student in Makerere University, you'll be required to present some of those certificates before graduation. And if you think it will be hard for you to attend them, there are PhD WhatsApp, there are WhatsApp groups for PhD students within the university. I can connect you to one of them, and then you can see how you can join so that whenever they advertise, you're among the first to apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, and that was a really good clarification you gave us all. And I should also say that this to all of you, that CABUTE does not come as something to replace any of the ordinary things you are to do in your study programs. The thing is with CABUTE is this comes, the services you get from CABUTE is in addition to what you are required to do in your programs, respective programs. So please, yes, follow up all. It's important that our candidates, all of you, that you follow up all requirements that are in the study program that you are following at, whether it's at Makerere, if it's for most of you, but and we also have some candidates at Chamburu in music education. So yeah, so that is a general advice to all of you. Okay, if there are no more comments, then I would just say thank you to all of you and say that the breakout rooms are now open. If you'd like to go and say goodbye and or discuss a few more issues with your colleagues in the different subject groups. But as a session for all of us, we close here. Thank you. You can click the breakout rooms. Ja, men Kjersti, da skal jeg stoppe recording i hvert fall.